Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. I am joined again today by my co-host, Riddy Muppetiers. And we'll be talking about the Liverpool game, talking about everything that's going on with transfers, talking about everything else and all the news happening at the moment as we go into the end of the transfer window and move into the bulk of the season. Today's video is sponsored once again by OneFootball. We've teamed up with OneFootball to help bring you the best in football news. If you're looking to keep up with everything going on these days, all the news, information, and scores, download the OneFootball app today for free on your iPhone or Android. Their easy-to-use app is clean and attractive. You can see the latest transfers, top news curated for you, match scores live, streaming without subscription, and so much more, all built and personalized for your interests. Click the link in the description below today to download OneFootball and get all your football news, aside from the Muppetiers, of course, all in one place. All right, so thanks for coming on again, Riddy. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to be back on. Just want to start off by saying I apologize if I sound a little hoarse. I'm recovering from a bit of a illness, head cold, whatever the hell it was. So I sound a little hoarse, and if you see me kind of turn to the side and cough, I apologize. But yeah, good to be on. And I will say, by the way, about OneFootball, I have downloaded it. Obviously, Sport Muppetiers. It is a great app. It is one of the better, legitimately one of the better football apps and sports apps I've used, and it is a nice UI, and it does actually present information clearly. So I do recommend it if you want a good place to keep up to date on all of your football. Yeah, but yeah, good to be back on. And glad we're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's nice to, as you said, it's been hard to do the kind of the together things, even though we did one last week because things have been so depressing. But finally, we get to have one of these where we have some good things to talk about. In fact, I would say that the last week for United has been the best week as a United fan since probably the 2021 season, if you think about it. Maybe the start of last season, like the first game, Varane on the pitch, right?
Maybe Varane. I was also going to say since Bruno signed January 2020, January 2019.
We've had some good moments.
Is it 2019? 2019, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was, and then when he scored that goal against Everton, just like that whole, whole shebang. That's this and probably Varane and Ronaldo. That was such a high, and it just crashed so quickly. But I don't think it's going to be the same this time.
No, I don't think so. No. We got Casemiro on the pitch, an incredible player, an incredible signing, just going out and getting the best defensive midfielder in the world, essentially, when it's a position we've needed desperately. And we kind of stumble into, after talking about Rabiot, stumbling into the better player, the best player.
I can't even believe it.
A player who comes also from La Liga. And if you've been kind of paying attention to some of the analysis out there, players who transfer from La Liga into the Premier League tend to play better in the Premier League, whereas in other leagues it can be kind of the opposite. So, obviously it's Casemiro, though. We don't have to doubt whether he can make it in the Premier League. I think he's got the build, the physicality, everything.
And the drive.
And that is important, is a hungry kind of mentality that he brings,
a winner's mentality too, by the way. And
yes, and I think it's important.
It is important. And when you have him, Varane, and Ronaldo, who've all won between them 4 Champions Leagues together, obviously Casemiro just won his 5th. That's an example that they can talk about and they can set and say, we've been there, we know we're talking about, you should listen to us. Obviously with Ronaldo, maybe don't listen to him as much because he's been kind of a negative in the dressing room. But watching, you saw Varane's face. Varane posted an Instagram post of him just smiling. He was so happy. And I think everyone in the dressing room is so excited to have someone with such grit and determination that it's really going to make a big difference.
Well, you do need that at this level of play. You really do need that. You do want to blend, even in a rebuilding team, of young, up-and-coming, high-potential players and some of those real established, guys who can really make a difference and who have been there, who've done that and who've kind of won it all, and that's what we haven't really had those established. I mean, funnily enough, I will even say this: Manchester City have struggled to win a Champions League. They haven't. And when you take a look at their team for a minute, has anyone in the City side won anything major outside of I'm obviously the Premier League is a big trophy, but have they won?
No.
Have they had success in
You mean
Europe?
like a European success?
Yeah, have any of them?
No. No, the only, in fact, besides for obviously the Prems and the FA Cups and the Carabao Cups that they won, the only other player that's won anything else would have been Holland when they won the German Cup. The
Yeah.
I'm not going to pronounce. I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's not to say that they
Last
haven't. Yeah,
the year before Sancho left.
and it is interesting. I was thinking about that. That sort of just randomly popped up in my head because I'm thinking, obviously City's done amazing, but they haven't got that pedigree of the winners. And I guess, I mean, Liverpool won the Champions League without that too. But there is something different when it comes to those guys in Madrid, when it comes to Europe. There is something different in the water there. I guess most in England, you don't have a lot of teams who've won the Champions League because it's been so Spain
What
dominated
is it?
for a
Just
long
like
time.
us, Liverpool, Chelsea,
Chelsea, yeah.
and then I guess back in the 40s,
Yeah,
there's
in the
like
ancient times as other teams, but
there's other teams.
modern day it's just that. So it's been
I
dominated
mean,
by Spain and
yeah.
I
Leeds
mean I
basically folded in the Leeds went down because they put all their money into trying to win the
yeah,
Champions League. They made it to the semis, but after that,
yep.
like no one's besides us, besides us, Liverpool and Chelsea, no one's really won it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely an interesting kind of pedigree. Obviously the one thing that it does do is it speeds up the timeline to be competitive. I'm not saying Casemiro only has 1 or 2 years left at a top level because he's not that type of player. He should be similar to Fernandinho, at least playing at an extremely high level until he's 34 or 35. So, it's 4 years, but that means it's 4 years of having basically the best defensive midfielder there. Varane behind him, Martinez in there. We've got options everywhere. I mean, that if we talk about Liverpool just as a brief roundup, being obviously the other major huge positive suddenly, it's very promising. It's very promising for the players that we have. That Malaysia looks like something, and Martinez looks incredible. And looking at these guys sitting
Yeah,
behind, a player like Casemiro as options. And here's the thing: I like Maguire. I like Shaw. I think that they're going to play a lot, and I think they're going to do very well. But competition is good, and the fact that Varane is obviously capable still of playing at an extremely high level. That Alessandro Martinez can show what he can do. That Malaysia has, such a high drive and capability is only going to drive all of our players to be better. And frankly, if they cannot deal with that competition and it doesn't make them better, then it is better they were gone because you do not win championships without competition. You do not win championships without players being driven and focused. And don't have a ton of examples of this, but when Brandon Williams came in a couple years ago and started lighting things up, Luke Shaw took it to another level. He's done it before, and I hope it drives him again. And it's not about playing favorites. Whoever ends up in the starting position, we win because they're going to be doing it because they're good enough, because they're performing at a high level, because it's on merit. And that's the positive of having competition in all of these positions. And I
yeah.
love that.
No, for sure. And so the other point about Casemiro, this whole situation, what you were saying, kind of reminds me of like when LeBron James. I'm an American. We're both Americans. When LeBron James went to the Lakers, like that propelled them to be successful in the short term, and they made moves in the short term that benefited them, and they won a championship from it. This feels similar, where we signed Casemiro. He has, and by the way, Milner, who's like 36, obviously played against us for Liverpool and was probably the best midfielder in that entire team. So
Oh yeah.
maybe there's an opportunity there for Casemiro is not going to be like Matic where he's going to lose his legs, and it's just going to be a really tough situation. But I will also say, like in terms of the center back thing, like James, you're saying, competition is good, but also what Lindelof and Maguire bring is incredibly different than what
Yeah.
Martinez
Yeah.
and Varane bring. Like we had no. One of our friends told us had told me the stat, which is there we had no progressive ball carries from the center backs and
Yeah.
one real progressive pass from the center backs, which is one of Maguire's specialties. He very often will take the ball up himself, will dribble it up, and that's more important when you're playing against a team that has a very low block
Yeah.
versus Liverpool, which we obviously very much played on the counterattack. That was
Yep.
where Rashford's goal came from, and then Sancho's goal wasn't. I don't think was as much.
No, I mean that was the thing in the first half. We spent about 30 minutes dominating play,
Yeah, it
but
was very
then
impressive. That's
had
what he
to
scored from.
settle in a bit after that and play a bit more in transition. And that's part of what
Yeah,
was so positive about the game. I cannot remember a 10-minute segment of playing Liverpool in the last 5 years, practically, probably 4 years, that we dominated the game. And the first 30 minutes we did. It was we were in control. I mean the
yeah,
goal was a beauty, not just because of how the great finish from Sancho, but because it was like
very impressive.
it was a sequence of in, back, around, out, breaking the lines, against like an actual build up goal that wasn't just straight on the run. And then the second one was obviously just sort of your classic. You get a team out attacking you and you can hit them on the break. And you're going to want those. Once you get a lead against a big team, it's better to hit them on the break when they're open. Um, so it was, but you're right. And the profiles of these players are all different. One of the things that is interesting is that, and I think is understood and will have to be balanced in the long run is that, both Maguire and Martinez are aggressive center backs. They want to come up and make tackles. That's the type that they are. We've talked about that as them being that style. And then you have like your sweeper or your cover center back. And
Yeah, that's more Varane and Lindelof, and I think
yeah,
Martinez is probably more aggressive than Maguire, and he's also
oh, he is.
much more mobile.
Yeah, but in profile, they both come up and are making tackles, right? And so as a pairing, it's not great because, especially because you have David De Gea behind them who does not come forward. So you can't have both your center backs being that aggressive. Varane was cleaning up behind a lot in how he should. So, Maguire Varane is a good pairing in terms of profile. You get passing, you get progression, you get both. Martinez and Varane is a good profile. Lindelof and Martinez is actually also a good matchup. There's a lot of the levels change, but it's a big kind of difference, and you always want height in there when you're playing Martinez too. So I think you're going to see mostly Martinez probably play with Varane, but I could see instances where it's Martinez and Lindelof,
It's a very
Varane and
small.
Maguire. Yeah, and it just
Not that it
depends.
matters.
No, and now you've added Casemiro. Well, one of the reasons McTominay's been playing is because of height. Fred deep at 6 doesn't work for a few reasons, even though he's better than McTominay on the ball, passing and such, but he's small. And Martinez is small. And you want a big player in there somewhere to win these aerial battles and, teams going long against us. Well, Casemiro is going to win those. He's going to win those now, so you don't have to worry about it anymore, and that is going to free up a lot of
Yeah,
the choices and the options at the back as well, because Malaysia is also pretty tiny,
he's
and
fast.
yeah,
That's very
yeah.
important for cover.
So there's just a lot. There's a lot of positives to take away from all of it. The positive, from Liverpool, you had so many players who were good, who played well.
Yeah,
And you could expect, I mean, Sancho and Rashford really got going. Bruno was better. Martial was excellent when he came on.
Bruno was very good. Bruno
The
was
whole
very good.
back line was good. So
It was our
the
first
only,
win, by the way, since 2018, which
yeah,
is insane.
yeah,
First win maybe in the league. I know
yeah,
we
in the
beat them in
league,
the FA
yeah,
Cup
in one of the cup games, yeah, the League Cup,
2021
the
or
FA
something.
Cup, yeah,
2020. The other thing I will say, by the way, that Casemiro does do is if you look at the games against Brighton and the one I'm not going to talk about because it
yep,
hurt too much. Um, the way that they hit us was we wanted to play a very high, high line,
yep,
which is important for kind of a low block team, and they took advantage of us and kind of hoofed these long balls, and it was bad. Casemiro helps prevent that, but also having a fast center back like Martinez and a fast left back
yep,
in Malaysia that's better cover for that kind of situation where they need to get back quickly. And you know what? Like, let's talk about Dubravka for a second, because I think it's time. This is probably a good situation. Like, when we have Dean Henderson, and there's already been talk that the reason why we're going for Dubravka instead of Trapp is because Trapp would be 25 million, and that's a lot of money to pay for a center back who would immediately be,
Goalkeeper, yeah, yeah,
a goalkeeper who would be the second fiddle next year,
yeah,
because that's
or
what's going to
third
happen.
because we still might have De Gea on the books
Yeah, so
technically.
you're paying 25 million for a goalkeeper who's most likely not going to start, and it's expected that Dean Henderson will be back at the end of the
Yep.
season, and he will be the number one goalkeeper.
And sorry, just one thing on that, because before I forget, because people asked, he gave that interview. Obviously, he was very unhappy. Gave that interview. I mean, I don't love the interview because he's still
Yeah,
your
it sucked.
employer
It
and his
wasn't great.
professionalism and all of that. However, people have asked, well, he given that interview, there's no way he's coming back. Not true. Not true at all. Remember, this is still business, and there's been many things teams have recovered from. He felt obviously slighted, all of that. He still wants to be Manchester United's number one because it's the best route to becoming England's number one. That is a fact. And that's what he wants. And that's what he will come back to do. And next year, if they, not if, but when probably, he is returning from loan, they'll tell him, look, you're the guy. You've had a great season. You can do this. You've got it. So I'm quite positive that'll be, what happens next year. There's nothing to say, oh, he can't come back because of the interview or anything like that. It's not that sensitive, frankly.
No, and the other thing is we wanted him back because Forrest wanted to buy him, and we said we'll only loan him. So we anticipated this situation, and we're fine with it, right? Like, look, there's, like James said, there's been a lot more toxic situations in sports where teams and players have recovered from it. Interview sucked. He clearly has been dejected. He was obviously dejected when he was leaking, or allegedly leaking things last year, right? So you're in this situation where, I mean, he's just going to be our number one goalkeeper. It's a very obvious situation. So paying 25 million for what would be either a second or third fiddle goalkeeper next year doesn't make sense. Does Dubravka make sense? Let's talk about that. In terms of statistics, from a shot crossing, a cross claiming perspective, he's better than De Gea. From basically every other stat, he's better than De Gea. The only stat he's not as good at is shot stopping, but he's only marginally worse. So having a goalkeeper who the only thing is he also doesn't really come out of his box.
Well, here's the
Like De
thing
Gea.
is, yeah, someone showed his stats because if you compare last year, he claims a lot more crosses but doesn't really defend outside of the box. However, Newcastle play, it's also, you have to think about the style.
Yeah, they play a low
How
block, so
teams are
he
played. If
wouldn't
you're
need to
playing a
come
low
out.
block, you can't. There's
Why
nowhere to
would
go.
he?
And when you look at someone compared it year by year from like 2017 onward, and 2017, he's got like green bars all the way out there on coming out of his box, and
Okay, yeah, so
he's a
he's
sweeper. And each
yeah.
year, it got a little less, a little less. So he is a sweeper naturally, as far as the stats say. He did come. He was aggressive. He was coming off his line a lot more, and then over the years, it got less and less, but not that much. So it's hard to say too much about it. With goalkeepers, it is hard to know. Would he be an improvement? Maybe. Would he be competition who's capable of and has experience coming off his line? Yes. And that will be interesting to see.
It doesn't really make much sense that we would go for him if we didn't think he would be competition
Yeah,
and would cover the
exactly.
deficiencies of De Gea.
Yeah.
Like, I know people have a bad opinion on our structure,
Yeah.
but they're not that dumb. They're not just gonna get a shitty goalkeeper and then
Yeah.
deal with it. Like, they obviously have scouting reports that say he covers the deficiency of De Gea, so I wouldn't worry about that. All right. I mean, it looks like it might happen.
Yeah.
It seems like we'll loan him
Yeah.
out.
It seems like he
Get him.
wants to, and then the loan offers being made to Newcastle. So I guess we'll find out.
It's pretty silly for like a team of our caliber to be doing this crap, but like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there has to be a reason we want him in the short term, but
Because De Gea stinks. What do you mean?
yeah. I mean,
There's the
that is,
reason.
yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the winger situation, because Gakpo's PSV got knocked out of the Champions League last night, which means that he's basically up for grabs. So now it's between So here's the situation that, as we understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, the main priority is Antony.
Yep.
It is not both Antony and Gakpo, unless Cristiano Ronaldo is maybe. The
Even
only
then,
way we'd get
I
both is if.
don't. The only way both is if that happens, but even then, I don't believe it. I mean, I just don't. I just don't see both. People are talking about
I don't
both, and
know.
I keep saying it's not going to be both. It's not going to be both, and now it's come up. They've cooled their interest. For Morency, and they've cooled their interest
Yeah,
on
but
gas.
today,
Both. It's not going to be both.
today people said that they're now expecting a bid. Like,
There's been so much weird talk from the Netherlands and all this, but Sky Sports, which funnily enough have actually been pretty good this summer, especially Chef
he's been better this year.
has actually been pretty good. Says they're in advanced talks with Ajax over the signing of Antony, hopeful that the agreement can be struck this week, discussing the nature of the add-ons deal over 80 million. And then it says Gakpo is a potential signing that they're keeping it says keeping bubbling, but keeping bubbling while the focus remains on Antony. Signing both has been described as unlikely but not impossible. In United speak, that means it's not happening. Signing Christian Pulisic on loan has been described as an outside bet. So the thing is that when it comes to United, it's just extremely unlikely. It's not to say one could rule it out, but it's United, and this is one of the areas we kind of know they don't tend to do that. Suddenly, just make a couple of signings like that, with that much money. They don't do that. Something like a loan for Pulisic, if Chelsea approved it, would be much more likely as a second signing. Something that doesn't cost. I mean, look at it for example. They went from having a goalkeeper budget to down to a loan. They went from, so basically here's the situation with Antony. He's on strike. He's requested a transfer. Supposedly they're bidding. They have like a general agreement around 90 to 95 million euros. And this bid is supposed to go in today. The reports from the Netherlands now say that it's maybe being held up because Chelsea aren't wanting to sell Ziyech and they're asking for too much money. And it is a little bit ridiculous because, one, it's already a ridiculous overpay for the player. And we've kind of moved past that and decided, look, we're going to back the player. Obviously, we will. Anybody who signs for United, I'm going to back. I could get excited about it. It is a gross overpay, but it's not the fault of the player. It's the fault of the club that could have done this months earlier.
It's the fault
Didn't
of the
have money
market too.
Yeah, and the market is terrible. I mean, when I saw Isaac went to Newcastle for
70 million.
he is not good. I cannot make this clear. He is not good. He is not a good player. He was bad. He is a bad player. He had a good season 2 years ago, and then he fell off a cliff last year. That's not good for a 22-year-old to fall off a cliff in terms of their production
Yeah,
and
that's pretty
output.
bad.
That is not
That's
good.
pretty bad.
70 million. I'd rather have Antony at 90 than Isaac at 70. Let's put it that way. I would absolutely rather have Antony at 90 than Isaac at 70. And, I haven't totally been super excited about some of the things Ten Hag's done in recruitment-wise, but the club haven't. But that's mostly a failure of the club. And at the same time, suddenly, Martinez and Malaysia look like brilliant signings. And they obviously
It's a
are.
little reactionary, by the way. Like everyone,
It is, obviously. But
one game, but it was against Liverpool. It was against Liverpool.
they obviously have the potential that he can bring out of them. So if he can do the same with Antony, then fuck it, right? But it is a bit ridiculous how there continues to be another problem, and it just continues to leave that slight, like I said before, the slight doubt at the back of my head. Are they actually intending to spend this money, or is it
Oh
all
yeah,
for show?
no.
I'm
I
just
think
saying.
they're. I think they're. It doesn't. No. But also, no, James. Come
I'm
on. This
very
doesn't.
suspicious. I'm a very suspicious person.
I know you are. I know you are. And I think maybe I feel like they are intending to spend it for sure. Like there's too much smoke for there not to be a fire here, and this doesn't feel like a situation. And also, we have a good relationship with Ajax. Obviously, the director of football. We're very good friends. Whatever. Like it's a good relationship, and they wouldn't be jerking us around, and we wouldn't. We also, I don't think,
Yep.
as a club, we'd feel good. Like Arnold and Murtaugh would be good about being like kind of jerking them around too. It doesn't feel like a situation where we would be playing games like this. And I do think, I know he's like the TikTok footballer because he does these crazy skills. clearly there is potential there
Yeah.
if we're willing to spend that money. We spent the money on Sancho. It took him a couple of years.
Yep.
I think I feel good about it. I think it'll push Sancho to the left, like we've discussed. Put Sancho into his natural position. You can have Rashford and Martial as the center forwards. Antony on the right. It is a very tricky front three that I think
Yeah.
would be very impressive.
It would.
So I'm
It
for it.
would. No, and I'm for it now. I'm just saying I just get suspicious about United about actually doing it. If the deal continues to stall, then they'll move for Cody Gakpo because the deal is there basically on the table to be done if they want it. Um, I think we've kind of talked about it a lot before, but I think we both are on the same page in that I believe that Ronaldo should go if there's an option, but I don't see an option for him. So I still don't think it's likely he goes, but it seems like it's best for everyone. I mean, look at how well we played. Look how well we played with Antony Martial came on. And so it was like, I think Andy Mitten said it on one of the podcasts yesterday. He's either got to accept a bench role that he'll come in and out of the squad as a bench player
Mm-hmm.
and be happy with it, or he's got to go. Those are the only two options. And United need to make sure that happens, that it's one or the other. Because yeah, if it's Ronaldo in a bench role as like a Giroud, coming off the bench to score some goals and obviously can still start sometimes and things like that, then it's fine if he's happy. If it's not causing problems, if he's not trying to take over the dressing room. And by the way, I'd give the captaincy to Casemiro like within the next month.
No. Don't do this like Maguire
No,
situation.
it's not. No, he is a captain though. Like he's
But so
that
is
guy.
Bruno. I thought Bruno was pretty
Yeah,
good as a
he did
look
good.
shithousery, man. It was
Casemiro
impressive.
is that guy. He's a leader. He's
He'll
got
probably be captain.
experience.
Him or Ronaldo. Not
And not
Ronaldo.
that it
Not Ronaldo.
matters
Not
so
Ronaldo.
much.
Not Ronaldo. Not Ronaldo.
I
Him or
always
Varane, maybe.
yeah. I always prefer it to be midfielders. I always prefer it to be people who are vocal. And Varane is not vocal. He's a strong personality, but he's not that.
That's true. That's
Um,
true. That's fair.
So I would give it to Casemiro as soon as possible because he's going to be playing like every game. So I would give it to him. And I just think it would be a benefit. I think it'd take the pressure off Maguire too if he becomes, that third center back and he's playing and he's in there and he can just perform well. Then so be it. Um, Outside of that, I don't expect anything else. I know people have talked about a right back. But from what I've heard, it's more likely if Wan-Bissaka goes that Brandon Williams will be the backup right back.
Which
He's
I'm
not.
okay with, by the way, even though he's a
Yeah.
left back. Even though he's a left back.
And bear in mind, this whole change here is not because we won against Liverpool. For some reason, people got the idea that we are going to spend 300 million and buy 4 or 5 players last week, and I kept telling people there's just no way. When you take manager wants blah, that doesn't mean that's what the club's actually doing. They weren't going to spend it. They're looking at all these different targets, but they're not going to do that. Realistically, now you're looking at a forward and Dubravka, and that's probably the window no matter what happens. But that's okay. If that is the case, how do we feel about this team going into the season? If we bring in Antony and Dubravka, let's say, how do we feel about this team? Where are our weaknesses, and is it good enough for top 4? What do you think?
Yes. Because I think that our midfield is one of the best in the league. I think that, and it's probably controversial, but Casemiro, Eriksen, or Fred. And by the way, don't forget, Casemiro and Fred have the Brazilian connection. They already know how to play with each other. They play with Brazil on a very successful Brazil squad. Not very successful, obviously, but like successful, good quality. So Casemiro, Fred, Eriksen, Bruno is a very impressive midfield with I think Scott might get loaned out. But that's a good midfield. And then our back line of Malacia and Luke Shaw are good. If Dubravka actually is good, that's good. And it can cover the weaknesses. But Varane, Martinez, those are good center backs. And then our front three is incredibly dynamic and has a bunch of different options in terms of what it can bring. You could have, a very mobile center forward or a very, in the box center forward with Ronaldo. And then our wingers are pacey, tricky, and can whip in across. And Antony is tricky as hell too. So I do think it is good enough for top 4. however, will throw in a caveat that I cannot make the determination until I see how we're going to play against Southampton on Saturday, because I'm not going to sit there and let one game determine this whole situation. I need to see how we set up against another low block, and if we're going to run into the same issues that we ran up against with Brighton and Brentford. So I need to see on Saturday, but I feel like it is, but we'll see.
Yeah, I have, I've always thought the squad is a bit better than it gets credit for. And you see that versus Liverpool. And, they're on. And when they're on and going, it's everything. And then when I take the squad, if you add Antony with Casemiro coming in, you add Dubravka, I think it's good enough for top four. I think Chelsea are kind of crap. I don't think they're going to do that well. I think we could beat Liverpool to top four too. They're looking very, very stale. I know that's an overreaction, but they've had a worse start to the season than us. They look
Also,
very stale.
yeah.
They're having injury crises left and right. They haven't really replaced Mane. They brought obviously Nunez, Diaz, and Salah as their front line. And they have, but beyond that, they don't have that much, and their midfield is still threadbare and very injury prone. Um,
Van
there
Dijk looks pretty bad, by the way, too.
Van
Like
Dijk is not been
he's
at his
getting up
best
there.
since the injuries, since the ACL, and the Trent has fallen off a cliff. Even worse defensively, he's getting completely exposed.
It's terrible.
I think they're at that evolution point where it's too early to say, but I think they're at that evolution point where it's going to be hard for them to do what they've done previously, and this could be another tough season for them in the
I
league.
will say I thought the same thing that one year that randomly they got third.
I
So like, whatever. And
no,
also
look,
to that point, Chelsea also looked terrible. I
yeah,
mean, that I know it was
they
what
have been terrible. They've been bad
you're right.
for
You're right. It's more than just the Leeds game. It is more than just the league game. They looked bad in their previous two games. They didn't look great against Tottenham.
last season. I'm telling you, the last 6 months of last season, they were not good. They
I mean,
haven't
Tuchel is I
been.
do not think he's a good manager, man.
He's not that good. He's not that
Yeah,
good. It's pragmatic, and the league is getting tougher. So I think that the top four, City obviously up there.
City are going to
Tottenham
win. City are
under
going to win the league. I'm
Conte,
just going to
yeah,
say that now. City are
Tottenham
winning
under,
the league.
under Conte should get. I probably will get top four. Um,
They'll probably be second.
Arsenal look great, but
Arsenal third, best
you
fourth.
have to wait till December, January with Arsenal. You always do. Um, when the schedule gets busy, if they can keep it up. I think we have a real shot at competing for the third and fourth positions with this
I agree.
team. But I think it's going to be based on this. Can Rashford and Sancho actually get into form, and can Martial stay healthy? I think those are the biggest question marks, because you're going to need them to contribute, and I think you're going to need Martial to bring the game he has for this to work. Um, I'm not worried about the midfield or the back line at all. It's all going to come down to whether our forwards can really get in form and get going, and that's what I think. But I do think we're
I
also
agree.
practically shoe-in favorites for the Europa League final. Ten Hag has been a
We
good
better.
manager. Our team is pretty well built for the Europa League, where things are more open. It's going to be easier for guys like Rashford and Sancho to get going. So I think they have the best, and I think we've got a really good shot at it. So
It's kind of nice having. I know everyone wants to be in the Champions League, but it's funny because I kind of think of the Champions League like. Actually, this is very interesting. I kind of think of the Champions League like the NBA playoffs. While it's sure nice to be in the NBA playoffs, if you don't really have a shot of winning it,
yes,
what's kind of like it's just for the novelty of being able to play Barcelona on a Tuesday. Like it's great and all, but it's not amazing. But the Europa League is kind of like the NBA play-in tournament, where like it gives you that chance of making it to the playoffs the next year, and that's kind of nice. And you also get a nice European trophy. I actually think that for us this year, being in the Europa is perfect.
it
No,
is like Jose's first season. He won Europa League, and it was a positive for the next year to really kind of kick on and get going and to win something. And so I think it is a positive, and we can't win the Champions League. So if we can win Europa, it could be fantastic, and we should be able to. I mean, we should have 2 years ago. We should be able to this year. So I think it could be great. But I'm really looking forward to Southampton. We'll obviously then we'll get some new takes. We'll see if they can carry this momentum forward. We'll hopefully see Casemiro start for the first time. I think we'll
Yeah,
play the same team versus Liverpool, except Casemiro in, Martial in, and
I
maybe
agree.
Fred, and that's about it. So let's see
Oh, you think
where this
Fred
goes for Ericsson potentially.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Potentially,
you gotta wake up at 5:30 too. That
I
sucks. I
know.
gotta wake up at 7:30, but you gotta get up at 5. Ugh, that's brutal.
Yep. All right, good.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're
All
just
right.
going to wrap it up for today. So thanks again for coming on, Riddy, and we'll do
Of
this
course,
again
yeah.
next week. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, looking forward to next week. Hopefully, we'll have
Positive
another
chat.
nice positive chat. Yeah, this is. I'm
Another
happy.
Brazilian signed and a win, hopefully by then. That would be nice.
That'll be really great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what happens with Antony into the game. It's been a nice positive chat for once, and I'm feeling very happy. All right,
Uh,
cool.
so yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and we'll see you in the next video.
Follow me on Twitter. Riddy
Yes.
Muppetiers.
Yes. See you later.